Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on this Yevamot daf Lamed Daled. We are going to begin on the top of Lamed Daled Amud Aleph with the first line, Yaman Haitana. Who is the Tana? The Isle Iser Koel, Iser Mosev Iser Basachas. Who holds that you can be chayiv in all those situations? Now, we did mention in yesterday's daf, Umaskana, according to Rav Yossi, we know that he does hold your chayiv Isser Izchal Isser by Isser Mosev Isser Koel and Bavasachas. We know that Rav Shimon disagrees and does not hold of that except for the case of Vasachas. Now, what was the case of our Mishnah? You had two people that married and they did Kedushin, but then there was a B'shogeg situation where they got confused and they ended up having relations with the other women. So in this situation, they're chayav to bring a carbon because of Eishes Ish. Now, all four of them are mechoyev. However, it says that shayach that you could actually have 16 chatos, because as the Mishnah said, if let's say all four of these situations happened, that there could be a violation of Eishes Ish, there could be a violation of Eishes Ach, taking your brother's wife. Also, if there were sisters, you're chayav for taking your sister's wife. And also, if there were nida, then you're chayav for nida. So it's 4 times 4 is 16. But this is a situation where it happens all b'vasachas at the same time, and it's an Isser Kol and Isser Mosif. And apparently, in these situations, we say Isser Chal Isser. So look in Rashi. Rashi says as follows: Kagon, Elu shechayavin arba chatos. How are each of these four people, the 2 men and 2 women, chayav for each? So again, it has to be a case where Rachel and Leah are sisters. And Ruvain, 2 brothers married 2 sisters. Now when Ruvain married Rachel, he married her first. Nesra al Shimon. Now Shimon, right off the bat, even though he's single, is usher because of Eishes Ach. He can't take his brother's wife, and also she's a married woman. That's Eishes Ish. Now those 2 things happen b'vasachas at the same time, and nonetheless we still see they are chayav for both of them. Now finally Shimon goes and gets married. He marries the sister Leah. So we say, so Migu, says Rashi, the asali hana kedushin b'kulu sharch vasim mishum achos isha asul nami b'eishas achiv. So not only is there an issue of achos isha, it's your wife's sister, you're going to be chayav on eishas achiv. Now that's considered to be, even though she was already usher to you from before, that's an Isser Koel. And then, let's say, so then it says, V'yadayin Rachel Zumu Teres L'Ruvain, Bala, but still, she's allowed to her husband, no pierce in Nida. No, she was a Nida. So, Migu, the Taisef Isser, Olala Gabi Bala, Misham Nida, there's an Isser now even on her husband, not just on everyone else, but even on her husband. So, Taisef Nami Isser, Gabi Shimon, Hari Isser Moisef. So that's an Isser Mosef, because an Isser Mosef means that she's now usher to more people, namely her husband. So we see there's a case of Isser Moisef, Isser Koel, and also Bavasachas. So the question is, who holds like this? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, Rab Meir he. This is like Rab Meir. The Sanya, again, l'chayr, you would think that l'chayr we can just say it's like the Shita of Rav Yossi. But we want to find another place where this is the din. The Sanya. Yesh oichel achil achas. A person can eat one thing at one time, which is bavasachas. V'chayiv aleh arba chatos v'ashem echad. And you can be chayiv 4 chatos and 1 asham. What are those times? Tameh. If a person the Kohen is tameh, she'achel chalev, he ate non-kosher fats, v'hu noiser, and it was something which was left over, which had to be burned, min mukdashin. And it happens to be Yom Kippurim. So this guy really did a lot of bad things. So, according to this first opinion, he says that you can be chayiv on all of these situations. So let's start off by understanding this. First of all, with chalev. So a behema has an iser chelav. You're not allowed to eat. You're only allowed to eat that. And then you have mukdoshim. It becomes holy, it's sanctified, which means now it's aser bahana, because there's an iser me'il on it. So that's considered to be an iser mosif. There's something added onto it. And then you have nosar, that now, because it wasn't eaten at the proper time, now becomes aser l'mizbeach, and therefore that's also an iser mosif. Number 4 is the Kohen himself is tameh, so now he not only can he not eat this because it's nosar, but he also can't eat any kodshim. So this is a case of iser koel, since more things are usher to him. And finally, Yom Kippur. So he can't eat all foods on Yom Kippur. Not only is he not allowed to eat this, but he's not allowed to eat anything. So that's considered to be iser koel. So we see that these cases of iser koel and iser mosif take place. Rameir Omer im hoisa Shabbos v'hoitzi b'fiv chayiv. He says that let's say it's Shabbos and you carry this food out in your mouth while you're eating it, you're also chayiv for hotzah. Now this is a case of iser of bavasachas, because Shabbos and Yom Kippur both start at nightfall. So both of these isurim take place at the same time. So Omul enum in a shame. So they said, no, that is enum and a shame. I'm not going to include that among this category. Says Rashi, what do we see? Dira maslim hoisa Shabbos alma islay rameir kuhu the haicha the hacha mishenoitzra behema. When the animal is born, v'hichulin nesor chelba ba'achil. As we said, it's mutter to eat. It's also to eat. But it's mutter bahana. Hook the shor and shermak. So then all of a sudden it becomes aser to achilo mishum zarus. That's iser mosef. So it has an iser mosef on it. And then it says nitma, that let's say the person who's tameh is a kohen, until now he was allowed to eat basar kodshim, and then he decides not to. He's not able to because he's tameh, so that's considered to be an iser koilel upon him. Okay, so more things are now usher to him. And also, Yom Kippur is going to be an iser koel. He says, he also mentions carrying on Shabbos, why? They happen at the same time. So, we see L'chara must be like Rameir. Rameir libdaman. Libd Rabbi Yeshua. Maybe he holds like the shita of Rabbi Yeshua. The Omer Tabed of our mitzvah potter. So we know that he holds that Tabed of our mitzvah, you're potter. So what is this talking about? Says Rashi, Mihu heichadaha mischaved l'davar mitzvah. Let's say a person has the intention, you wanted to marry this woman, and mimekano it's a puravu. We see isha kaman mirabois of Sir Lake Rameir, but Tabed of our mitzvah v'los mitzvah. So what happened? You were Tabed of our mitzvah. You made a mistake because you took the wrong woman, and you end up not doing the mitzvah. So in that case, situation, be potter. You wouldn't have to bring any karbanos, according to this case. What is this referring to? So it's Rebbe Lezer the Meal, and the Sefta Shabbos is brought down in Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin. Rashi says, you have 2 little babies, 2 boys. One was born on Shabbos, so his bris is next Shabbos. One was born on a Sunday. So we ended up doing a bris meal on a baby who's only 7 days old. You're supposed to have waited until Sunday, but did the bris on Shabbos. Now, the Hainu Nami Tabed of our mitzvah, lo asa mitzvah. Shedain lo higiz manu pater Rabbi Yeshua. In that situation, you were Tabed of our mitzvah and you didn't end up doing the mitzvah. In that situation, it's problematic because, again, the mitzvah wasn't done. So, in that situation, he holds your pater. You're not going to be chayiv when it comes to the case of doing a bris meal on Shabbos to a baby that was really supposed to be, the bris meal was supposed to be on a Sunday. So, l'chayra, in this situation too, by our Mishnah, you wouldn't be chayiv karbanos, el libed Rabbi Lezer. So we say, no, maybe it's according to the sheet of Rabbi Lezer, who holds Tabed of our mitzvah, also mitzvah chayiv. So, Iboy saying, el libed Rabbi Yeshua. Kikam Rabbi Yeshua. When does Rabbi Yeshua say your pater? It's because he made a mistake when it came to the babies, but there was a time pressure to him, and therefore he didn't have time to investigate who the correct child was for the bris. However, when it comes to the marriage, he could have done more time to investigate before he ended up taking an incorrect woman, and therefore because of that, he would be chayav. So even normally you hold the din that Talbid bar mitzvah loss and mitzvah that you're potter, that's only when zman bahol. But now over here, when it's not zman bahol. I've heard truma. How about when it comes to truma? Dain zman bahol. Again, you could have investigated a kapater, and yet we're going to see you're going to be potter there. Let's say a person was eating truma, and then it turned out that he was a chol, and a chol, because he's the product of a ben grushim and chalutza, is not to eat truma. So he obviously did something wrong. So he was hoping to do the right thing, but he ended up not. So we see over here that Rabbi Yeshua says that you're potter in this situation. So Rabbi Yeshua holds Talbid of our mitzvah potter l'chayr even in this case where it's not zmanu bahol, because you could have investigated to make sure that you are not a chol. So ha'itmar la'amrabibi barabaya hacha b'truma be'erev Pesach haskinan. Here we're talking about the consumption of truma mamish right before Pesach, and because of that, there's zmanu bahol. Why? What's the difference? So Rashi says shlot tesarif, because you had to burn it. It was, let's say, chametz. So you had to eat it before the zman, and therefore you didn't really have time to investigate. So because of zman bahol, in that situation, that's why he'll still say your potter. Bas achas, Rav Shimon. Maybe in fact, we're talking, the whole situation is like Rav Shimon. And it's referring to the Isser B'vas Achas, that when it comes to B'vas Achas, as we mentioned, even though Rav Shimon holds ein Isser Chal Isser, and you only chayav one when it comes to Isser Mosav or Isser Kolel, however, he is masking when it comes to B'vas Achas, they be chayav more than once. So you can establish perhaps our Mishnah of all these cases, of this woman who's in need, etc., that all happened at the same time. So it's very possible that you have this person's a shliach, that one's a shliach. All the men, the women, they all had shluchim to be mekabel the kedushin. So therefore, in that situation, says Rashi, kulhu masnisin lavra meir he el lafil Rav Shimon demekel. So it's shaykh to establish our Mishnah like him, again, that everyone appointed shluchim. Says Rashi, Shnei achim shliach echad, so two brothers appointed one shliach to bring it to the women. And they accepted that one shliach to come in makabel it. And one shliach was pointing at the other shliach. The tol yachad, Zel zev, zel zeh, iser eshes isha, iser eshes ach ve'achos isha. So all these three things happen at the same time. How do we find that she was in nida at the time, before? So Amram mishofas b'seich yud gimel, that she was already having a flow of nida at the time before. So he was almost 13 and she was almost 12, and then they became bar bat mitzvah upon this time, and therefore that's how it's shaykh that it happened all b'vas achas. Okay. Let's just go on. Let's go weiter. Says the next part of the Mishnah, Mafrijanison. So in this situation, because they were with the wrong women, now that it was all done b'shogeg, and therefore they could go back to their husbands, it wasn't done b'oinus, it wasn't done b'ratzain rather, and they're not kohanim, so they can go back to their husbands, but they have to wait a period of 3 months, because it's shaykh that maybe they got pregnant, and therefore we want to be able to know, to distinguish between a zer kosher and a zer apostle. So, says Gemara, it's something which is of great difficulty for a woman who is a basula to have when the very first time that they have tashmish, that they're going to have be pregnant by birishayna. Now, even though many people say that it's now, maybe Bisman Azeh in the year 2022, that may not necessarily be the case. So the woman who's a basula could get pregnant on the first time. Either you could say that this is talking about a different time in history. This is 2,000 years ago, where perhaps biologically there was this phenomena that was a reality, or the likelihood of a woman getting pregnant on the first time, we even understand, is extremely unlikely. Of course, it's possible, but according to the Gemara, this is how the Gemara, you can perhaps read this Gemara. So, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, Shabol v'shanu. So what happens is they had Bia, and they had a Bia a second time. So because they had Bia, so the first time they had Bia, it's true, there is maybe an element of unlikeliness of her getting pregnant, but if they repeated the tashmish, therefore, because of that, there's a greater likelihood that she got pregnant. You should be chayav every single time you have bia, so it shouldn't be 16. If we're saying that she had bia twice, so it should be 32. According to the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer, he says you're chayav on every koyach. Says Rashi, V'hasam hachitanya bolel chazer bolel chayav al kol achas. You chayav each time. And he says b'bia achas kama chiyuvin. Actually, even with one bia, there's many chiyuvin. Kol koyach koyach hanoshel bia b'fnei atzmahi. Every element of hanoshel bia is like in a vary by itself. Avol ihavi yedia bein koyach koyach havi machayev akol chad v'chad. It has to be that you had a yedia. If it was shtei yedios, then you're chayav on each one, each koyach. So you can say that too. Ella the b'koyach rishon kachashav achanav the birishani kachashav. He's only mentioned the very first time or the very first action. Normally, Rebbe Reb Nachman says the Gemara in Lamed Daled Mebeis, I v'ha Tamar b'birishani ibra l'chayra. Tamar got pregnant, as we know with Yehuda, and l'chayra it was the very first time they had tashmish. So Rashi says mi Yehuda kedi amla kaman the erba onan shul kedarken shimshu. This she was not l'chayra, she was a basula, and therefore we find that the very first time they had tashmish, she got pregnant. Amalei Tamar be'etzba maka. So it's possible that before she had bia, she already had opened up her herself in a way that she was no longer a basula as we know it. She may not have had relations with a man, but her hymen was broken. Yom Rabbi Yitzchak kol ma'achais shel beis Rabbi Tamar Shimon. All the ma'achais, all the people that had this taken place to them, says Rashi, Tamashiros b'sulehen betzboisein Tamar Shimon. Anyone that would do this procedure of having their hymen removed with their fingers without actually having had tashmish, they were given the term Tamar. So that must be that the reason why they're called Tamar is because that is the thing that she did. V'lam nikra Shimon Tamar al shem Tamar shimacha be'etzba'a. So again, that's the reason why she was called. Everyone's called that because that's what she must have done. What do you mean? We know that Er and Onan they were married to her and they died, but obviously they had tashmish with her. So Er Onan shim sheshol kedarkan. Actually, they refused to have relations, as we understand it, with tashmish of bia, but rather they had tashmish with her shelo kedarkan, and therefore because it was to be a shelo kedarka, so therefore they weren't able to. Obviously, her basulas were still intact. If it wasn't for the fact that she broke her hymen with her fingers. Meisvei kol esrim ve'arba chodesh, all 24 months, dash mibifnim, literally thresh from inside, bezarim mibachutz, and you plow outside. Divi Rabbi Eliezer, Amalei halol enu ela kamasi er ba'onan. So, what is this referring to? Look in Rashi. So Rashi says, the 24 months, shetinik yoinik, when a baby is nursing, you should be dosh mibifnim v'zar mibachutz, kadesh l'tisaber v'tigmol es benav yomos. We don't want your wife to get pregnant, because then the elements of nurturing will end up possibly happen that she won't be able to nurse her child properly, because she's gonna be so focused on her pregnancy that she may not produce enough milk, or she won't focus on her child. So we don't want you to actually get her pregnant. So therefore, you should be dosh mibifnim v'zar mibachutz. And we say, that is not something which one should do by having your being zareh mibachutz outside of her, because that's what Aaron Onan did, which means they perhaps did have tashmish with her, however they were not moitzi zera inside of her. But that means that she actually did have tashmish. When it says kamasi Aaron Onan v'lo kamasi Aaron Onan. Kamasi Aaron Onan dechseva hayim boil eshes achiv v'shiches arza. That actually what they did was they spilled their seed onto the ground so that she wouldn't get pregnant. However, the way that they didn't get her pregnant was because they had bishul kadarka. In fact, she never did have tashmish with any man until Yehuda. Now, bishul onan dechsib b'shiches arza. I can understand that by Onan. How do we know that's what Er did? So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak dechsib yomas gam oso afhu b'osa misa meis. That must be the fact that it says that in this pasuk, the Aaron and Onan both were punished for having committed the same crime. Now, Bishlam Onan mishum lo hazara ela Er my time oven hachi. I can understand Onan. It says that he did not wish for her to become pregnant. But what was the rationalization of Er my time oven hachi? So kadesh lotis aber v'yachish yafya. That if she would get pregnant, then her beauty would diminish. Which obviously is a sad commentary that this man's entire desire to be this woman is based on her physical beauty, and that by her being pregnant, that would take away from her beauty. Okay. Tanrabanan. Osa, so the pasuk says Osa. So that, says Rashi, Isha, Asher Yishkav Ish, Osashich Vazera, when you have a man and woman that live together, have tashmish, V'rachatzu b'mayim oisa, then they should then immerse themselves after tashmish. However, that's prat lakala, that she does not need to do tefillah, says Rashi, mishum tumas bia rishayna, because of the first time of having bia. Divi Rabbi Yehuda, v'cham amrin prat l'shalo kadarka. It's coming to exclude a bia shal kadarka that would not require tefillah. So Amalei Hain Berid Rav Nachman Lema Kasav Rabbi Yehuda. It must be that Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's Prat Lakala, is because this is the svara Lema Kasav Rabbi Yehuda Hatar Chasa al Tachshiti Kala, that the Torah is merciful on the Tachshitin of the Kala. What is that? Chayil v'sara kanostenes al paneha v'imtitbol yavirim hamayim. So she spent all this money on makeup and beautifying her hair and doing her hair and her nails and everything, and all of a sudden, immediately afterwards, she has to remove all of that. So maybe the Torah says, you know what? I'm going to have compassion on her and not require her to immerse. And maybe the other shot is because a woman is not going to be able to get pregnant anyway in the first bia, and therefore it's not considered to be shech vazera the in royal hazriya, because it's not something in which, as we said, is possible or likely for her to get pregnant. So mamai kimefki rabbanan savri shech vazera prat lahara. When it says shech vazera, that's coming to exclude hara, which means, as Rashi Shul Hezriya, this person who did not end up having a Gemar Bia, it was only Tchilas Bia. Osaz Prat L'Shul Kedarka. Rabbi Yehuda Savar L'Shul Kedarka V'Hara Mishkav Zara Nafka. You can actually learn both of those things out from the same pasuk, because both of them are not capable. Is the same idea that it's not a Mishkav Zera, because it's Tashmish either shul kedarka, or you didn't end up having an actual zera. You didn't end up having a shechva zera. Osa prat l'kala. And therefore the osa must be coming to exclude the kala, that we allow her this heter. Ki asa Rabbanan Rav Yochanan kol shaso acher ba'alo aser shanim v'nisei shuv eino yoledas. If you have a woman that waits 10 months after her husband, let's say her husband died, and she does not have, just get married, and she just basically, time goes by, and 10 years go by, shuv eino yoledas, then she's not going to be able to give birth, even after she decides to get remarried, but she waits too long. And this, as we understand, perhaps it doesn't necessarily even mean 10 years, but it has to do with a significant length of time. And we know that as a woman ages, there's a greater likelihood that she will not be able to have a child. It's much more difficult for her to be able to have children at an older age. So the only time we say this is if she completely psychologically disconnects herself from ever having a desire to get married. So even if she does get married, it's going to be so far removed from her. But if she has intention to get remarried, misaberes, then she'll be able to get pregnant. So there's different ways to understand this. It's all psychological, and we understand that even though it's a physical act, but it makes sense also that the psychological aspect, the anxiety or the disconnect, can cause physical issues in the body. Amrli Rebel Bas Rav Chisda, Kamuranani Rabbanan Abasrich. So he says the Rabbanan are going after you. What does that mean? Shishois Eser Shanim Acher Balei Harishon, because you waited 10 years after your first husband died, and Vrami Bar Chamahavi. So Amrle Ana Datoy Aloch Havoy. I had my mind on you. So therefore, because of that, she was shaykh to have children. He died the Asil Kimed Rav Yosef. So there was a person who came to Rav Yosef. A woman said, Amrlo. So she said, Rav, Ana Shahisi Acher Bali Eser Shanim Biuladati. I waited 10 years, and yet I was still able to have a child. Amalei biti al toitzi laz al divrei chachamim. Don't speak laz against the words of the chachamim. In other words, it either that could mean it's not true, or we have to understand the depth of what the chachamim are saying. So amalei lenachri nivalti. So she said to him, Nachri Nivalti. I actually had relations with a Nachri. And therefore, because she was or still in the process of having Tashmish, that could have enabled her to still be able to have children even after having waited that long. Everyone needs to wait for 3 months. Chutz migiyores u'mishachareres. Katana. If you have a katana, who is either giores or freed slave, she doesn't have to wait. However, even if it's a katana, but since she was a Jewish girl, we require to wait. Says Rashi. After they had tashmish, you have to wait 3 months. Why? Lo gazru banan bekatana lahamtin achat tvilas giyaris u'mishachareres. We do not make any gezer when it comes to them. Fine. However, a katanus nami koi, the katana bas Yisrael srich lahamtin. The afgav the la bas banim he, even though katana can't have kids, ben kan havchana ben zer shel rishon l'zer shel sheni. There's no need to really distinguish because they can't have kids anyway. Gazru banim mishum gedayla. So when it comes to Yisraelis, we're Gazer Katana because of a Gedoyla. What exactly are we talking about? What does it mean that she had to leave her first husband, and now she's had tashmish, and now we want to know, does she have to wait 3 months? So if, let's say, she was married and she was a katana and she did miyun, she left her husband in that way, remember Shmuel, the little boy, Shmuel says you don't need. It's not required. Says Rashi, there's no issue of a gezerah because miyun is only shaykh by a katana. V'beget, so maybe she was married, a get was given. So ha'imar Shmuel chadazim, the Shmuel mi'ana bo ena srich laham to shlosh chadashim. However, nasan a get, if the katana was given a get, srich laham to shlosh chadashim, which again it makes sense because we're talking about a situation where it's similar to a gedola. Gedola can get a get, katana can get a get, and therefore that can be confusing. So therefore we require her to do this. So there's no chiddush there. So Gemara answers el baznus. We're talking about a katana who is mazana. So in that situation, if we know for sure that she was mazana, when it comes to her, let's say, getting married, she has to wait 3 months. As we continue to lamed hayim and off, we goes rabban katana mishim gedola. As we say, we make the zera. However, it says top Rashi, we got gioris katana will goes to mishum do shchicha. However, when it comes to gioris katana, it's not something which is shchiach, that a katana gets converts. So therefore, we don't make that gzera. In fact, the Gemara migazrina and katana mishum gedola. Do we really make such a gzera? But tanan imohaye katana she'en ruis leiled machzas miyad. It says that if you have a katana who can't have kids, we say that she can go back immediately. Rav Gidol Amarav harash shahaisa. That actually is a harash shah. Says Rashi v'lo haisa. So you're right. Normally we're not geyser. However, because chilaf is not shchiach, which is our whole Mishnah, so because it was a case of harasha, mechlad havi, so implies that in fact it did happen. El ki harasha haisa v'chilaf lo shchiach. So it's actually the whole switching situation is not something which is shchiach. So therefore, that's the distinction. Again, milsa lo shchicha, something which is not common, we're not so concerned. Fine. So again, we're not geyser on milsa lo shchicha. We'll stop here. Let's see a couple questions now. Question 11. Madua hiskim Rava. Lase says almana. How did Rava allow to this almanas Rambach limrois? So the question is, how did he allow her to get married? So the answers because her das was to marry him, and also in that situation because she has das, that she was going to marry him anyway, so therefore she is shaykh to end up getting married. Katana shezinsa. If you have a katana that was mazana, him sricha hatnonas gimel chadashim will have. Does she need to wait 3 months? Yes, no, why not, or why yes? Tolchad Mishnah lishna sricha hamtana otu gedoyla. So one shot is, if she's mazana, the katana, we're geyser atu the gedoyla, even though the katana can't have kids. However, another lashon says ein sriach, that she does not have to wait, kiman desnus katana or shchicha, because it's something which is not shchiach, and the milslo shchicha goes b'rabbanan. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions. TA 17. Shnaim shekitzu shtei nashim chayav mishum eishes ish heich mishkachas lo shehei kedushin b'vasachas. How is it possible that you can have this case of kedushin b'vasachas? So we ended up saying, which this was question 17, Lamed Daled Aleph. It's a situation where of a shliach. Shostan hanashim v'hanashim shliach upon shliach b'shliach. So that's a situation, TA 17, where all these things could happen, b'vasachas, and again that she was already in need from before, etc. Okay. TA 18. Matai katan Yisraelis. When does the Yisraelis katana eno sricha lahamdin gimel chadashim? When does she not need to wait? So when it comes to miyun, matai srichin lahamtin by get, no matai havi plota betray lishna begemara. When it comes to znos. So this was Lamed Daled Amud Beis, which we already extended to Lamed Ham and Aleph. So that's TA 18. So by znos is two lashonos. However, when it comes to miyun, so he says miyun boy ein tzrich lahamtin, because you can't make a mistake because it doesn't happen to a gedola. You can only do miyun if you're a katana. TB 19. Eza katana basasul kuli am ein tzricha hamtana lahavchana, and that is a katana by miyun. Let's see if it says that. Mamenes in a sricha havchana adkan.